You're listening to the Unwritable Rant podcast with your host and bourbon-soaked storyteller, Juliette Miranda.
Well, hey there, y'all. I'm Juliette Miranda, and this is the Unwritable Rant podcast. I'm hopeful that at least one of you is wondering where the fuck I've been and will withdraw my name from whatever shady death pool that you have entered me in. Because I am, for all practical purposes, not dead. I've just spent the last 6 months writing a novel, which honestly is somewhat similar to a self-imposed death sentence. Anyone who tells you that writing is fun is either drunk or not drunk enough. It is tedious, torturous, and really only occasionally satisfying. And that is only after you have done enough work to walk away and not revise the entire main story arc when it is 3 a.m. and you are laying in bed. I wish I could say that I am at that point with my own novel writing right now, but I'm not. That being said, I have freed up enough space in my stupid head to remember a kind of writing that doesn't make me wildly stabby. And y'all, that would be for this podcast. I was reminded of that the other day, actually. It was around 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, and I was sitting at a dive bar off Jackson Square. My intention had been to go out and buy groceries, but y'all know me and how these things go. The second I get a whiff of bourbon, I am like a rat chasing after cheese. I admit this is not the nicest bar in the French Quarter. When it's humid, which is pretty much every fucking day of the year, the air inside the bar has a chewy sort of quality and a yeasty aftertaste that just lingers on your tongue. The bar stools are pretty much made of duct tape, and the floor is permanently sticky. But I will say that this bar is very well stocked. The bathrooms are always surprisingly clean, and there is always an interesting local to talk to. So I'm sitting there and I'm kind of eavesdropping in on this guy who's talking to the bartender next to me. And I never did catch his name. But the dude was drinking a Schlitz beer with a NyQuil chaser. Now, he was quick to qualify to all of us that he didn't actually need the cold medicine. He just wanted to take the edge off of some coke that he had just done in the bathroom. And if that isn't the world's weirdest speedball, I don't know what would be. So, of course, I got to talk to the guy. He was complaining about having to go hunting with his cousin for Christmas. He hated the whole process of hunting, hated getting up early, hated having to douse himself in synthetic deer pee, and he really hated having to be still for hours on end waiting for deer to show up. So, of course, I asked the natural question, why do you do it? And you know what he says? Because I love having hunted. He lists all of the food that his family makes with the venison, from stew to chili to sausage, and he explains that he just enjoys the satisfaction of it all. But it's here where his story takes a little bit of an odd twist, because apparently the best part about hunting is visiting the strip club for a Christmas lap dance when they're all done. And this isn't the standard strip club that he and his cousin go to. Oh, no. This strip club is located somewhere in the swamp, and it's not a club at all, but a double-wide trailer with shag carpeting. The dancers all go barefoot because they kept hitting their heads on the lighting when they wore heels. And I'm trying to picture all of this in my kind of fuzzy brain, and for a minute, my heart goes out to those poor dancers, who likely have rug burn between their toes. But then I realized that the 8 a.m. Christmas Day strippers aren't exactly the A-team, and I'm guessing they've seen a whole lot worse than this dude, who may show up covered in blood and fake pee, but at the very least would be happy and satisfied and make for some fan-fucking-tastic conversation. And with that, y'all, I realized it has been far too long since I have shared my own bourbon-soaked stories with you. Because while I genuinely hate the process of writing, I love having written, and I really love telling stories. And I got a lot of them. It's been a hell of a 6 months, y'all. It truly has. I mean, from catching COVID and living, a hurricane, all sorts of craziness here in the French Quarter. I got a lot to talk about. So here's the deal. To get things started, I'm going to share an episode from very deep in the podcast archives because it is my favorite Christmas story, and it also just happens to be about a strip club. And in January, I will return with all new bourbon-soaked stories. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with y'all. With the work that I have left to do on this novel, there is no way I can resume a weekly posting schedule. It would kill me, and it absolutely would kill my poor guy. So I'm going to shoot for monthly, and we'll go from there. So until January, enjoy this bourbon-soaked story about green-tinted Christmas spirit. I hope y'all have a merry one. Cheers. I have one epic Christmas story for y'all today about green-tinted spirit and a half-naked militia. But first, y'all, what do you say we have a drink? I'm going to pour myself a glass of Peerless barrel-proof straight rye whiskey. Cheers, y'all. Now, I have to admit, I have avoided Peerless rye whiskey because I feel like it is dramatically overpriced for a 2-year whiskey. I mean, seriously, this stuff runs at like $100 a bottle. Now, that heavy-duty price tag comes from Peerless being a true craft micro-batch distillery. Still, I'm not necessarily willing to shell out that much for a bottle of 2-year whiskey. However, I am drinking this because a very generous friend sent it to me for Christmas. And I'm going to say it is a perfectly good rye whiskey. It is. It's more sweet than I anticipated, even at barrel proof, which is, by the way, about 107 proof. And it definitely has spice that builds up the more you drink it. I mean, it's really nice and peppery with a little bit of a brown sugar sort of finish. But it definitely has a rougher alcohol burn. And that's partly because of the proof and partly because it hasn't spent a whole lot of time in a barrel. So I'm adding a couple of drops of water to balance this out. Quite honestly, y'all, I'm enjoying it. I am. This is a lovely rye, but I'm not going to be buying it for myself. However, it does make a very lovely gift. Now, I have something to tell y'all that I hope you don't misunderstand. You know, my guy has already threatened to call in the men with the white coats, but I'm going to say it. I still kind of sort of believe in Santa Claus. Well, okay. Let me clarify a little bit. It's not exactly Santa that I believe in. Although I'll tell you, if that dude popped out of my fireplace one Christmas Eve, I totally would not be surprised. I think it's more that I like to believe there's something to be said for the spirit that accompanies the holiday season. Now, that spirit can manifest itself in all sorts of ways. For some people, it's in doing good deeds. For others, it's decorations and songs. And for me, my spirit kind of changes every year, but it is always unconventional. Particularly that one year when my Christmas spirit came in the form of a green fairy at a strip club. That was a holiday season of many conflicts for me. I was in my 30s, and I was finally beginning to do well professionally. So I had a decent place to live with actual furniture. I even had a savings account. But that was as far as my adulthood extended. Personally speaking, I was a hot mess. I was a hot, sleazy mess who filled in the gaps between my relationships by dabbling in rock stars. And y'all, I had a total system. It was ridiculous. When a relationship with a guy whom I actually liked would end, I'd wallow for a couple of weeks or so in self-pity. And then I would consult the touring schedule of every rock band that I knew. And there was always someone coming to town that I could call on. That particular December, it was a guy that I will call the Pro. He was a professional musician in every respect, except perhaps accountability, and he had spent his career filling in for guys who had quit or were booted out of their bands. So he toured with dozens of rock and heavy metal bands, never spending more than a few months with any of them. Now, I liked the Pro because he was talented and exciting to be around, but I disliked him also because he had once suggested I get a nose job. Clearly, I was not feeling especially discerning when I called him. But he was happy to hear from me and offered to send a car to pick me up, suggesting that after his gig that night, we check out some fancy new strip club that he'd heard about. This was the day before Christmas Eve. What I should have done is stay in and watch Rudolph and drown myself in a punch bowl of flaming brandy. That would have been more productive. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted company. I wanted closeness. So I got myself all dolled up in a miniskirt and stiletto boots in the dead cold of winter to spend the night with a quasi-jerkwad, and I even managed to convince myself that I was lucky to get the opportunity. The one thing the pro could always be counted on to deliver was a flagrant display of alleged stature. So I wasn't surprised to see that he had sent a limo to get me. He was the last true rock star that I knew. I mean, this was a time when even the big bands were downsizing and cutting costs. Yet somehow this guy managed to show up to every show in a chariot with a gig writer more extensive than Mariah Carey's. And God love him, he got away with it. I didn't watch any of his show, by the way. I spent most of the time backstage taking advantage of the paraffin wax treatment that he had requested that I knew he would never use. Since I was there as a guest and not as a professional writer, it was a relief to not have to pretend to be interested in his band or in his onstage preening. I was going to see enough of that after the show. And y'all, did he ever get himself gussied up to go out? Now, I love a guy who cleans up well. I mean, who knows how to look good and knows how to dress, but the pro? Holy balls, was he a girl. He had recently chopped off his long hair into one of those bro shag cuts. It did not suit his aging face one bit. No matter how long he blow-dried and misused an entire bottle of Paul Mitchell hair gel, he still wound up looking like an electrocuted David Cassidy. And if I sound scornful and jaded now, it is only because I have the benefit of hindsight to see the pathetic absurdity of this guy. And myself, because in the moment, I licked his snakeskin boots just as eagerly as everybody else. I admired and complimented, and I even loaned him my fucking mascara, which, by the way, he never returned, all because I was just so excited at the prospect of spending the night with him. Ugh, it was such a sap. I do have to admit, though, his choice in strip clubs was outstanding. Over the years, I've become something of a connoisseur of strip clubs. Now me, I like my strip clubs either seriously grungy, I mean, we're talking biker bar and bullet holes, or over-the-top glam, like this place was. From the outside, it looked a little bit like a shoebox. But on the inside, it was a neon pink utopia. There was a main stage against the far wall, mirrors polished to a high gloss everywhere, and 4 or 5 mini stages with just a platform and a pole scattered around the first floor. The music was loud, the drinks were stiff, and all of the dancers were decked out in Christmas lingerie, from teeny little Santa skirts to G-strings dotted with puffy white pom-poms. Apparently nothing says Merry Christmas like a lap dance, because this place was jumping. And for the first hour or so, the pro and I lived out every Motley Crue video cliche imaginable. We're talking lap dances, illicit touching, and I even spent some time twirling around a pole with a brunette who was wearing little more than fuzzy Rudolph antlers on her head. It was adorable. It was all sorted and delightfully tacky, and I was all set to pounce on the pro and suggest that we take the limo back to his hotel, until another pro took over. She had a name, and for this story, I'll just call her Cheeky Monkey. Some girls strip to pay for school, and others do it for the thrill, but Cheeky Monkey, She did it as a career. I doubt she purchased a single thing on her body, from the very fake boobs to what I'm confident were very real diamond earrings. I don't know if she smelled money, fame, or just general desperation on the pro, but she climbed right into his lap and latched on tight. And damn his ego, he literally bought right into it. She turned his head so fast and so far that when I returned from getting several spite-fueled lap dances of my own, they both had disappeared. I mean, they were gone, limo and all. So I frantically call the pro, but he'd turned his damn cell phone off, and I figured he wasn't going to be turning it back on. Oh, this is not good. And it was all my goddamn fault. I mean, all of it my fault. Don't get me wrong, the pro was a dick, but I knew that going in. In my dumb rush to not be lonely for Christmas, I had completely ignored my top 2 rules in how to hook up with a musician. 1, never leave the guy unattended, and 2, always give yourself an out. Musicians generally have the attention span of a prairie dog. So if you're not there to constantly guide them back to where they need to be, you will lose them and whatever else you are counting on them for, whether it's an interview, seats at a show, or sex. And that meant I was officially stranded at the strip club. You have to understand, y'all, I may as well have been on Gilligan's Island. I mean, I had a cell phone, but there was no Uber app. There was no Lyft app. This place was remote, and no cab that I would ever want to get into would even consider picking me up in that part of town. I scroll through my phone list, and I realize that there is only one person in the world that I can call. Someone who will answer my call and also not want sex in return, and that would be my girlfriend, Texas. Texas has always been the balance to my crazy. A badass chick who had seen me through my best and worst moments ever since high school. She'd just gotten married, and seeing as how it was after 1 a.m., I'm pretty sure my call to her was about to test the for worse part of her marriage vows. I'd worked myself up into a mild hysteria by the time she picked up the phone, and I half cried, half screamed my way through an explanation for why I was calling. Texas, bless her heart, was annoyed but understanding, and promised that she would be there in an hour. I just collapsed into a chair in the back of the room. There was no natural light in that club, and all the pink neon was beginning to make me feel like I was trapped in the bottom of a Pepto-Bismol bottle. It was so depressing. The waitress who had served me and the pro earlier passed by the table, and she stops when she sees the look on my face, and she asks, "Oh, honey, what happened?" I'm not normally one to open up to strangers. I mean, let alone some random cocktail waitress, but I was so exhausted and so dejected and just feeling so tragic that I blurted out the whole stupid story. By the end, I was sobbing. Sobbing in a fucking strip club the day before Christmas Eve. And if that isn't a whole new kind of low, I don't know what would be. Nobody wants to see a girl crying in a strip club. Least of all the manager, who gets all huffy and storms over and tells me to get my shit together or leave. Fortunately, several of the girls come to my defense. And the next thing I know, I am being hustled across the club and to the upstairs dressing room by a herd of thoughtful dancers. Word had apparently made its way through the club that the cheeky monkey snagged my guy, and all of the girls were outraged. Not exactly on my behalf, but because they all collectively hated Cheeky Monkey. They huddled around me in the dressing room, dabbing at my tears and stroking my hair, and they shared all of their grievances. It would seem that Cheeky Monkey made a habit of swooping in and stealing the good customers while leaving all the gropers, leches, and bad tippers for the other girls. What's more, she borrowed their makeup without asking, never cleaned up after herself, and even swiped tips off the stage. She was a stripper without scruples, and the girls were over her. The more they talked about how much they hated Cheeky Monkey, the more worked up they got. One minute they're all sympathetic and pampering. The next minute there's a half-naked militia rising up in the dressing room. They're yelling, "Fuck her," and "that bitch," while Kid Rock is thumping in the background. And I find that my self-pity is quickly usurped by their glittery agitation. And suddenly I'm thinking, yeah, who does that bitch think she is? The strippers are restless in their anger. And one chick kicks open Cheeky Monkey's locker and begins rummaging through her things. Panties and slips and pasties go flying around the room, and the girls realize that Cheeky Monkey has also been stealing their outfits. That did it. I'll tell you, there is nothing quite so terrifying as a gang of outraged strippers. I mean, the claws just came out, y'all. And I can only imagine how effective they would be if they banded up over something that actually mattered. Instead, they wage war on Cheeky Monkey's locker and stuff, crushing pallets of eyeshadow, overturning jars of body glitter, and just denting the hell out of the locker door. And then there is me, right there in the center of the mob, with a fucking pair of scissors, gleefully turning Cheeky's bikini panties into a pile of confetti. I was such an asshole. A booming voice just interrupts our bitchy mayhem, yelling, "What the fuck is going on in here?" I look to the dressing room door, expecting to see a bouncer or a manager or maybe even a police officer. Instead, I see Texas. Shit! I'd kind of forgotten about her. Texas is wild-eyed and wearing pajamas. Her parka still has flakes of snow on it. Her hair is a tangled mess, and I am sure she is wishing she were back in bed with her husband and not confronting this trashy disaster. Sadly, this is not the first time I'd called in Texas for a rescue and wound up forcing her to hunt me down. The last time I pulled this stunt, I'd asked her to haul ass up to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. I'd gotten into a vicious fight with the guy that I was seeing and desperately needed an escape. Of course, by the time Texas arrived, he and I had made up and were frolicking in a boat in the middle of a lake. That time, though, I was able to kind of smooth things over by buying Texas a hotel room for the weekend. And we all wound up hanging out, so it was fine. It's not like my distress signal had, compelled her into a shady industrial neighborhood on the south side of Chicago and required her to march through a strip club in her fucking pajamas. God, I was a shitty friend. Oh, I was the worst. If I were Texas, I would have grabbed me by the hair, dragged me out of the club, and dumped my sorry ass at the first bus stop I found. But Texas was never that kind of chick. She shakes off her coat and drops into a chair, lighting a cigarette as she does. Texas gave zero fucks about where she could and could not smoke back then, and just inhales deeply. Now, the strippers and I are still locked in our tacky assault positions like mannequins. So it takes us a couple minutes, but we break our poses one by one, dropping lingerie and makeup on the ground and kind of slowly coming to our senses. And I notice that Texas is holding a gift bag, which she extends out to me with kind of like a Santa-like smile, and she says, "I think you can use this right about now." The girls gather around as I reach into the festive bag. Wrapped in dozens of layers of red and green tissue paper is a bottle. It's not the typical whiskey bottle, which becomes even more evident as I see that the liquid inside is a murky sort of green color. Y'all, Texas had brought me a bottle of absinthe. She'd picked it up on her honeymoon trip to France. knowing that if there were anyone in her world who would appreciate French absinthe, it would be me. I'd never actually had it before then, but I had always wanted to try it, and, well, right then and there seemed as good of time as any. So I looked to Texas, who smiles and says, "Grab some glasses, girls. I'm going to show you how to drink absinthe." Oh, it's beautiful, y'all. You add a little bit of water to it, and the absinthe just starts to change colors and swirl around and turn into this sort of greenish, milky color. It's amazing and magical. And no, you do not set it on fire. Little tip from me to you, that is the quickest way to look like an absinthe amateur. No fire, y'all. Ever. You're welcome. I'll tell you, the funny thing about absinthe, though, it is an absolute load of crap that it has hallucinogenic properties. Because, y'all, absinthe is just a very high-proof alcohol. However, that holy trinity of herbs does have a fascinating, lucid sort of effect that's not entirely unlike caffeine. It just makes things more clear, I suppose. So for the next hour, the girls and I gleefully knocked back many, many glasses of absinthe as Texas played bartender. I won't say it was exactly cozy or Christmassy there in that stripper dressing room, but as I let that green-tinted spirit work its magic, I did start to feel better, and maybe, just maybe, a little merry. Sure, the pro was probably off in his luxury hotel room banging that damn cheeky monkey, and I was left there in a pile of shredded panties and spilled body glitter. Yet somehow, I felt as though I'd come out ahead. Right there, I had a group of temporary but no less awesome friends who were happy to rally around me. And I had Texas, my loving friend who, even in the wake of my dumb decisions and occasionally shitty behavior, was still happy to welcome the dawn of Christmas Eve with a bevy of strippers, a bottle of absinthe, and me. It wasn't the company I expected to be keeping that holiday, but it turned out to be the best company I could ever have asked for. Cheers, y'all. Merry Christmas.
Go to theunwritablерant.com and sign up to get early access to interviews and new videos. And don't forget to connect with Juliette on Twitter @MorningNeurosis.
Girl, you as pretty as a Sunday morning, standing on the corner at Carondelet. What you say we make our way up to Bourbon, a couple hurricanes and a hand grenade, and get blown away and let the chips fall where they may. If it's all the same, what you say, bon ton, hey, pretty mama, I can smell the gumbo. Sweet as taste of honeysuckle on my lips. Good God Almighty, I can hear the trombone. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this. Come a little closer, honey, let me hold you. Nothing tastes better than a bourbon kiss. You can be the flower on my magnolia. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this.